So, not long ago, the president had signed an executive order, and this order was to literally establish regulatory clarity for digital financial technology and to secure America's position as the world's leader in digital assets economy. Now, this was to drive innovation and economic opportunity for all Americans, right? All sounds so great and grander. However, what's the agenda behind it, right? Why does US wants to be the leader in digital financial assets? Looking at its situation it is currently, let's dissect this. Now, keep in mind there is an amazing article right now by an individual known as Arthur Hayes, and we'd like to dissect this article and really just analyze it briefly in this video today. But before we get to the article, let's just get some background facts in all of this, right? Why would the global reserve currency US want to be the leader in digital assets? How is it going about it? Because Hayes is calling it a Trojan horse, right? He's calling stablecoins a Trojan horse, right? That are loaded with trillions to fund US debt, right? So I agree with it, but I also look at it as an opportunity. But before we get to all of these, let's divide this video in two parts. The first part is just the history behind it. Where do we stand now? So like we said, there was an executive order signed by the president, the US president, and this was to establish the US to be literally the leader in digital assets, digital finance, have clarity, and so on and so forth. But now, nothing happens just as a coincidence. Why is that the case? So, what's the challenge? What's the challenge that the US is faced with right now? And we're not picking on the US. Understand that this monetary system affects multiple central banks, but US being the largest economy in the world, it dictates literally what the rest of the world does, because there's a saying that if the US sneezes, the rest of the world catches cold. So what we're faced with are a few challenges. Let's briefly identify them. The first one is the question: how high can US debt actually go before it triggers a real financial crisis? Let's dissect this even further. So right now, just recently, the tax bill just went through, right? So the tax cuts bill currently, after the debate, it passed, right? It's known as the Big Beautiful Bill, right? That's how Donald Trump calls it. And what this does is it really is going to add another 3 trillion US dollars to the existing US debt. So the first challenge is the US debt crisis is just out of control. It keeps rising, it keeps going up, and there is no solutions like in sight as of now. So another challenge that I'd like us to look at as we are creating this case is that it's not last week, it's an older article. However, also recently, Moody was the third and final credit rating agency that literally downgraded credit rating of the United States. And what was the concerns? What was the reason? It was over its $36 trillion debt pile, right? They just kept growing. So the move sent ripples, of course, through financial markets and could complicate President Trump's efforts to cut taxes. Because what happens if you've cut taxes? We just saw what happens. That means you have to print more, add even more debt to the existing debt pile. So this is why the Moody's rating agency dropped the US government's credit score by one notch from its pristine AAA to a AA1. So like we said, it cited raising debt and interest costs that are significantly higher than similarly rated sovereign nations, right? So, but that's not all. Let's look at some more challenges. Let's pile up some more challenges. So as we see here, I like that title here, US doubles down on debt. like we said, the US debt is actually growing, just to put it into perspective, by about 4 trillion or 4 billion US dollars every single day. 4 billion US dollars by daily. And it's reached and surpassed 37 trillion US dollars so far. So if nothing changes, experts warn that interest payments could swallow up the entire budget, leaving little for things like Social Security, defense, and public services. Now, this is a major concern, like we had, that experts, economists, CEOs, you and I, this is something that we're all aware of, right? The unsustainable debt crisis that we faced. One of the most famous economists and macroeconomists and billionaires, Ray Dalio, what his take was on America's $37 trillion debt problem. And we all have that same take, right? Everybody has an opinion on the crisis, right? So it goes beyond individuals, and it moves over to nation states, right? This situation brings us back in the early 70s, and to be specific, 1971, when Nixon had to pull the plug and get the US dollar off the gold standard, because at that particular time it was France backing up their ships, wanting the gold back. Fast forward today, 2025, Germany and Italy, they're facing pressure from home because they need to repatriate roughly 245 billion US dollars in gold, right? Because why? The trust in US custody is no longer here. So these are the challenges that the US is faced with right now, amongst more. There's even more. So in addition to all of that, tariffs, trade war, inflation, all these are impacts that are going to be even uglier by this summer, right? And this is what economists say. So this is just a backstory to this article, leading us to this article right here. Why stablecoins are literally considered Trojan horses, and not just stablecoin isolated, but digital assets, risk assets, but specifically cryptocurrencies, stablecoins. So let's look at this in more clear terms. Again, this is Arthur Hayes. He's a co-founder of BitMEX, and a very well-spoken individual, very good macroeconomist. So let's look at his take here on why his take is that stablecoins are literally a Trojan horse. So his take here is, in a nutshell, that it's not because the US is all about decentralization, right? And he's arguing here that it's not that technology's biggest beneficiaries won't be decentralized financial platforms that literally pioneered it, but rather the too big to fail Wall Street banks and other financial officials shaping the U.S. financial policies. So what we need to look at, understand here, is that Arthur Hayes also warns, of course, that stablecoins will fuel U.S. debt. In other words, are the solution to the U.S. debts, because stablecoins will bring demand for both treasuries, short-term treasuries, and also for the U.S. dollar. And these stablecoin issuers, predominantly being banks, he predicts $10 trillion in new treasuries buying power from these specific banks. Because if banks issue stablecoins, they'll be required to back these stablecoins by short-term treasuries, and there is a potential, his prediction, of $10 trillion in buying power. So this, what happens if you buy $10 trillion worth of treasuries? Two things happen. It brings down the interest rates. That's the most obvious. What happens if interest rates go down? Money, access to money is cheaper. Financing is cheaper. Liquidity is readily available. It triggers the market, and it does so without causing inflation and without having to print new fiat, but through stablecoins. That's the argument of, or rather the take of Arthur Hayes. So with the Genius Act already, it's literally being headed to the House. It's supposed to be passed any time from now. So what we need to understand, community, is this. So this liquidity injection could pump risk assets like Bitcoin and equities, right? Even without the Fed's reviving quantitative easing, meaning printing. That's what we are so familiar with, right? Printing money. This will cause more inflation, raise interest rates even higher, and then increase debt as well. So stablecoins are a Trojan horse. That's the take of Arthur Hayes. That it's not like the US is fanatic about decentralization, DeFi, and all that, but rather it's bringing it in to retailers. It's presenting it as a decentralized new modern day financial system, so that when embraced, it's literally the solution to the debt crisis, right? To the inflation that is happening, and to the existing fragile monetary system, which is debt driven. So that's what this article in a nutshell is about. However, I don't just see it as a bad thing that stablecoins are a Trojan horse. I take that take as well, right? Obviously, stablecoins are the solutions in our community. We've been discussing this, that stablecoins are the solution to the existing debt crisis. And actually, even Ethereum, that's our take, is the ultimate treasury, strategic treasury, because it's literally through its proof of stake and staking capabilities and its deflationary mechanism and its value that it gains simply by adaptation. And the more trading volume it has, the more deflationary it becomes. Now you have an asset that is a technology that you can earn yield on, just like you can on treasury bonds. However, without the backlash of causing inflation, right? Raising even more debt and loss of purchasing power. That's the argument why Ethereum potentially as a new technology is a whole new asset class and can work hand in hand to literally take over the part of US treasuries without the negative aspects of it, of, like we said, increase in debt, inflation, loss of purchasing power, while earning debt and injecting new liquidity into the economy without causing inflation. So that's my take. So let me know down in the comment section below, what is your take on it? Do you really see it as well as a Trojan horse, the stable coins? And who can take the most advantage of this? Let's discuss this in our next video. And who and how you can take advantage of this. For now, let me hear down in the comment section below how your take is. What's your take? Are stable coins a Trojan horse for you? Or how are you going to make the most out of this situation right now? With that said, that's it for today. Till we meet again. See you again.